السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته once again. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. Amen. I'm just thinking I forgot about that dua, but I'm gonna get it for you now, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم وافتح علينا بمعرفة العلم وسهل أخلاقنا بالحلم واجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم اجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك ولا تجعل فيها حظا لغيرك. وصل اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. I'm going to get you that dua shortly inshallah, um, and I will send it to you بإذن الله تعالى. What did I want to say? Yes, today is our last official class of the year. Next week we'll be having our ending of some adhkar, etc. As I'm sure you would know better than me. Um, what I wanted to do for today is look, we're not going to be continuing with the reader next year. We might do something else in place of it, or we might substitute it just with more Quran. So what I wanted to do is that just give you guys a last opportunity to just maybe do some revision together. Ask me any questions, any questions about that you feel necessary in your learning about Arabic, not just related to the reader, but in relation to Arabic, what you struggle with, what you're not struggling with, what you feel you need more improvement on, etc. So if you would like to give any suggestions or anything in that regard, then suggestions or questions or anything like that, then we can look at that. But before we do that, we'll just take 10 minutes, inshallah, to get into our breakout groups and have you discuss amongst yourselves those same questions, and also do a little bit of reading from the reader, as we've been doing for the past 2 weeks. All right, you pick any chapter, any section, read a few lines without looking at the English from the section in your book that starts on page number 44. You can read anyway. It ends on page number where does it end? Page number 59. From 44 till 59, that's the whole book without any, there's likely not going to be any English there or anything like that. So read a chapter, a section from there and translate it. Just read it and translate it. One person reads Arabic, one person translates. I hope you're switching from week to week so that person's not doing the English every week and one person is not doing the Arabic every week, just for practice purposes. Then we come back. You can ask me any questions related to this and related to your learning of Arabic in general. And then we'll move on to Surah Al-Qadr and hopefully finish Surah Al-Qadr today bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So Nasreen, if we could go into the groups quickly, just for 10 minutes, that would be great. I want you to do your reading of the Arabic, but also just give a moment amongst yourselves to uh, think about if there are any specific things in your learning of Arabic that you need to improve on or you need further help with, or that you feel you should focus on more. Okay, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back, everyone. So before we just carry on to your questions, I typed up the dua that I usually make as I was requested to do. This is the dua that I usually make at the beginning of the class. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I didn't translate that. That's like, I'm sure you can work through that, inshallah. اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم. Oh Allah, remove us from the darkness of delusion. وأكرمنا بنور الفهم. Honor us with the light of understanding. And be generous to us also. وافتح علينا بمعرفة العلم. Open upon us the recognition of divine knowledge. وسهل أخلاقنا بالحلم. Make our character easy with forbearance. وجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. And make us of those who listen to the speech and follow the best of it. اللهم اجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك ولا تجعل فيها حظا لغيرك. O Allah, make our deeds sincerely for you and let there be no portion of it for other than you. وصل اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. That's again salawat and praising Allah at the end. So for those of you that wanted it, I will send it to Sister Nasreen bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and she can pass it on to you.
Maulana, is actually easy. You can, I did now, I screenshot the Arabic and then I went over to the English and screenshot that also. So it's not actually necessary for you because you can screenshot it. There
Yeah,
you
but
can
what is my
screenshot the
face in the
whole.
middle of this somewhere? Okay, I'm gonna take my face away, and then you can
No, it
screenshot.
doesn't matter. It's okay. Then we got the remembrance of you.
Yeah, but now you have a nice dua.
Plus you gave it. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, so right, this is dua. I'll send it to you, inshallah. I'm gonna switch back now to the reader, and then we can discuss any questions. So, are there any questions in relation to what's going on here? Okay, so were there any questions? Are there any questions related to anything Arabic related for that matter?
Manana, it's just basically that there's some disconnect for us, at least the ladies I'm grouped with, between the written word and the actual listening to it. I know the exercise that we're busy doing is supposed to assist us with that, but it is identifying the root letters because as soon as we hear it in a different form, then we no longer identify with the word, but if it is written down, we can easily see it. But if it is spoken or we hear it, then there's a complete disconnect between that. So it's basically just the difficult of how to breach that, to bring that narrower.
Okay, good. That's a very good observation. So, what I can recommend in relation to that, right, is, I mean, we could provide you, I could, potentially provide you with an Arabic story that you can listen to, etc. But I think that uh, is just going to help with practice, which this exercise, the reading of the story and listening to others reading it, etc., uh, serves the same purpose. But what I think will really help you is familiarizing yourself with how those changes sound. Like, for example, um, if I give you the verb Daraba. Daraba means to hit, right? And I give you the word duriba. Duriba means to be hit. It's the same root letters, but it's a different form of the word and it has different meaning. What is important is to familiarize yourself with the form and how it sounds as well. That's why when we were actually doing our sarf in the class, we repeated scales all the time. I mean, every week we would repeat فعل, فعلوا, فعلت, um, فعلنا, فعلتم, فعلتي, فعلت, sorry, فعلت, what am I saying? فعلت, فعلتم, فعلتي, فعلتن, فعلت, فعلنا. We'd go through the present tense scale. يفعل, يفعلون, تفعل, يفعلن, تفعل, تفعلون, تفعلين, تفعلن, أفعل, نفعل. We'd say that all the time. And then we'd add to that another scale and we'd say that scale all the time. And the idea behind that was to actually hear the difference between يفعلون and يفعلون, between uh, يضربون and يضربون. It's a very slight difference, but I think in being cognizant of those forms and listening to how the form sounds. So as soon as I hear يفعلون, يضربون, ينصرون, يحشرون, my mind is already telling me that it's speaking about someone who the action is done to, not somebody that's doing the action. Um, or when I hear the form فاعل, ناصر, ضارب, فاتح, whatever the case may be, speaking about an active particle, somebody, a thing that does an action. Um, that's actually the purpose of our study of sarf. Now, I think what we must do is to couple that study of sarf, to couple that study of sarf in terms of having the words in front of us with listening to the changes. And I think perhaps through that, your ear will be more attuned to the meaning associated with a form. Your ear will be attuned, not just your eye. Your ear will be attuned to the meaning associated with a sound form, and I think that will make it easier to understand. I don't know if that makes sense, but just if you try and attune your ear, like for example, we know now when I see yafalu and yufalu in front of me, it's very easy for me to differentiate, as you mentioned, you know, what form that word is, what meaning is associated with that form. But now we must try and transfer that understanding of the written forms that we have in the form of a written form and understanding. We must try and uh, transfer that now to the audible form and meaning. But I think that will come through reading aloud. Like oftentimes we like to read the Quran and then you're not actually saying anything. You're not actually listening to yourself. Or you read your Mankasalas Nam quietly, like we read English books silently to ourselves, right? We should actually try and read aloud and listen to ourselves, not just focus on the words. Or, another good thing would be, and maybe we could help with this, or I mean, people could also do it for themselves. Just record yourself reading Mankasalas Nam, right? And then listen to yourself reading it. And then you'll get practice in tuning your ear to the forms of the words. Does that help in any way? Or perhaps I'll brainstorm the matter as well, and I'll run that by Mullah Khalil and see if we can come up with ideas to remedy that as well. Are there any other concerns or questions or anything like that?
But Maulana, how did you do it? How did how was it always? Did Arabic always feature in? How did you come to make that
No, it's
connection?
the same. I mean, it's the same for me. Difficult. I could. Uh, I mean, when I was like, especially with the Quran, when I was sitting with the Quran, I could easily understand. Um, looking at the words and seeing the root letters, I'd easily understand it. But when listening to someone, I would easily get lost also. That for me came with I think practice and engaging with the language and reading aloud and reading Quran, I'm not going to lie, there was a slight advantage that I had. That slight advantage was that, alhamdulillah, I read Quran from small and I was doing hifz and things like that. So knowing portions of the Quran allowed me to read it without looking, recite it without looking, and then try and understand it like that. So there was that slight advantage, but that can be replicated. That can be replicated by, putting on a recording of someone reciting and trying to understand. Now, with the Quran, it's a bit more difficult because the sentences are going to be more complex than in Man Kasalasna at times. Um, so what I would do is, for the Quran that I learnt, I mean, this is now talking about when I was in first year. For the Quran ayat that I learnt, like for example, you guys learnt Surah Al-Alaq, or you learnt Surah Al-Teen, you learnt those surah already. What I would do is, I would read a surah, right, and go through it with the meaning. See, do I understand each word? Do I understand each word? Can I put it into a sentence? And then actually listen to it. So there is some degree of studying at home involved. And now, for example, if I hear Surah Teen, hopefully by the grace of Allah, I would understand the whole surah. But it was, there was a precursor to that. That was at some point, I think I did sit down and go through each word. Do I know what teen means? Do I know what zaytun means? Do I know what turi sinin means? Do I know what each of these words mean? And then reading a sentence, do I understand the sentence? Now I just read it again whilst trying to understand it, and then string things together. So we do part of the work in class, but to achieve that objective of understanding the Quran on your own, there is some degree of study that you have to do. So for me, it didn't always come easy, just like for everyone else. I mean, when I started, I didn't know any Arabic, like no Arabic grammar, nothing. It's not like I learned the stuff when I was small. Okay, I was really young. I was like 17 or something when I started, but I didn't have any. I could read Arabic. I didn't have any prior Arabic knowledge beyond that. So like for everyone else, it's something that you
Well,
can achieve. Really, you can achieve it, but it takes persistence. It takes consistency in terms of doing your work, and like to be honest with you, I wasn't the most diligent student. Like I didn't do my work every day and stuff.
Well, no, I think it's also about
Nothing.
being Mark, about being also realistic with expectations. It's just like as us learning English. In essence, we are at almost that infancy stage of Arabic, and
Yes.
it didn't happen overnight that we learned English and all those rules. It was something that you continuously work on. So that we should also not try to expect that within a year or two we're going to be now the masters of the
No,
Arabic language. It's something that you need to be
definitely,
continuously working on.
definitely not. Definitely. Like for me, at the end of my first year of study, I could read, but with a lot of struggling. With a lot, and I did the first year full time. I read with a lot of struggling, unvowed Arabic text. But even I didn't apply myself so much. At the end of my second year, it was still with a lot of struggling. So I mean, and now it's what, maybe 10 years later, 11 years later. Alhamdulillah, now I'm uh, a lot more fluent in Arabic and speaking and reading and all of those things. And that came with time. I can't say, for example, when I was able to read well or whatever. But you must just be consistent and persist with it. But I think that's something that with the part-time class, because we don't have that pressure. We don't put much pressure on you. There isn't really that urgency to study. Now that really helped me in my first year, where I would sit down and I would tell myself, today I'm going to take this amount of Quran. Maybe let's say, uh, like I said, I wasn't very diligent, so I used to cram and I used to do a lot in a day. But say, for example, somebody were more diligent and say, I'm going to do 1 page today. All that I'm going to do is one short surah. I'm going to read through the surah. I'm going to go through each word. I'm going to spend only half an hour. And if you do that every day, I can guarantee you your understanding. And then I'm going to listen to someone recite it and I'm going to try and understand. And if I don't understand, then I'm going to do it again. But I'm going to do it for this whole half an hour. I
I think
think that really helps.
consistency is key.
Yeah,
I think that
definitely.
I can't remember. You would know better about Allah in terms of Allah's what Allah loves the most is not those big actions, but those small, consistent ones.
Yes,
Uh,
that's the hadith of Rasulullah. خير الأعمال ما ديم عليه وإن قل. The best of actions are those that are done consistently, even if they are little, even if they are, small in comparison to other actions, right? So, yeah, that's correct. Consistency is key. Just chip at it all the time, even if you must go back. There were times, I'm sure, when I had to go back to my Nahu book. What does this concept mean? Am I applying it correctly? Or all of those things. And nowadays we have a lot of aids that can help us. Back then, there was no corpus Quran. There was no. I'm saying back then almost like I'm so old, but it was 10 years ago or so, 11 years ago. There was no corpus Quran. There was no um, Quran apps,
Quran
Quran
Hive.
Hive app where you can just click on the word, whatever. I had to actually. There was a old app that was like for Windows 95 or something like that. Windows 98. It still used to work on Windows XP. It doesn't work on Windows 10 any longer. You probably have to get an emulator or something where you could do a similar thing. You could click on a word, but then it would give you the explanation of the Arab of that word in Arabic. And I didn't, like I said, I was still learning. I didn't understand Arabic. I would just read that thing in Arabic and just pick out a word here and there. Okay, mansoob. Okay, I know what that means. Maf'ulun bihi. Okay, I know what that means. So that must mean that this word is mansoob because maf'ulun bihi. Now we have a lot of aids to help us in that regard, and I think we must use those aids. So I go through the verse, I tell myself, okay, this word is the maf'ulun bihi. Then I go check, is it the maf'ulun bihi? Yes, it is the maf'ulun bihi. Now I'm confident I understand that construct over there. Move on. And just a little bit all the time, all the time. We must use those tools. Some people don't like the experience of using the technology. There are books that have this as well. At the time, we had a Quran, like it was fairly big, that had the words with the Arab beneath it in some kind of code. I can try and probably get a PDF of that, and we couldn't actually get a physical copy of the book, so people used to print it out. We had the PDF, and then actually we didn't even have a PDF. Somebody just literally, there was one person, I think Mullah Ali had a copy of the book, and then everybody else just photocopied that copy of the book. So, I mean, if people like a more tactile experience, you can do that as well. I can probably send the PDF of that Musaf as well.
Meiko Molina.
Alaikum
I
salam wa
was one
rahmatullah.
of those who struggled with Hans Weer, and I actually found a YouTube way that teaches you how to work through the Hans Weer dictionary.
Brilliant.
I just thought of sharing that.
Perhaps you can send a link. You can maybe send a link to myself or Sister Nasreen, and she can share it with the class.
Will
That's
do,
also something
inshallah.
that helped me greatly. That's also
Yes.
something that helped me greatly. I didn't have a YouTube video to help me with the answer, but when I would come across a word, I would check the word up in the answer. So though the teacher may tell me a meaning of the word, I would allow myself to forget it and then check it up in the answer. And that's actually one way of learning well. Um, I was speaking to my brother about this, and that to have something stick in your brain, you must actually learn something, and you must allow yourself to forget it a little bit, and then refresh it in your memory. Well, and that helps for the content to stick. So I would actually come across a word. Next time I come across the word, I didn't really write the stuff down. I'd forget it, then I go look it up again. And if I forget it again, then I go look it up again. And I read through the whole verb meaning and the noun meaning or whatever. And like I said, I mean, I wasn't very diligent. So I'm sure if somebody were to dedicate a half an hour a day, then I mean, you'd probably be in a very good way to become good at your Arabic business.
Maulana, assalamu alaikum. And what about conversational Arabic for understanding? If you talk to whoever and try to understand what the other person is saying or whatever.
Yes, 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 yes. So if you have access to somebody that you can converse with, then that will be very good. That will be very good. Yes. One way of helping yourself in that regard is, if you remember, I can't remember now if we did it, if I did it with this class or if it was the year before. We had that Arabic reader, the Medina series Arabic reader. Was it with this class?
No.
No. So
No,
there's a
Maulana.
there's a there's a series of books um, about Arabic for like learning Arabic for non-Arabic speakers. The Medina series of Arabic books, 7 books, but the one for children. It's the same content really, but just take the. I mean, if you want to go buy a book, the Salat Timbuktu, the Salat Noor Center, the 7 series book of conversational Arabic and just Arabic in general for that matter. But I would advise you, if you buy that book, take the version for children. It's replete with pictures. Then you'll see the picture of a star, and then you'll say Najmun and Najmu, and then it gradually allows you to build up. And even Mullah Muhammad did the book with his son. Mullah Muhammad teaches the book somewhere as well, and he swears by the efficiency of the book in making you comfortable with the Arabic language. So um, that that can help greatly. The stuff that I spoke about before will help more with your ability to listen to and understand the Quran and read and understand the Quran specifically. The the conversational type Arabic will help you more with just getting to grips with Arabic in general. And even that Medina series book will help you get to grips with Arabic in general more. Um, so that's also a very good series of books. The Medina series of Arabic books for children. It's a 7 series book.
Malana, may I ask a question, please? So the type of Arabic that we're doing so far is geared towards trying to get us to understand the Quran eventually, inshallah. What about the Hadith? I know sometimes the Mulanas like bring up some Hadith, and I don't know. Personally, I feel that's a lot more accessible and at like the same level as Man Kasara Asnam. So
Yes.
is the language in the Hadith very different, or is it?
No. The language in the Hadith is not very different to the language in the Quran. The Quran rhetorically is, I mean, in terms of rhetoric and what you can read into the language is on the next level. I mean, it's a mu'jiza, it's a miracle, right? But in terms of the structure of the language, the Hadith is in classical Arabic, just like the Quran is. So getting to grips with understanding the Quran will also enable you to a large degree to understand Hadith.
Alhamdulillah, that's quite cool. Okay,
Yeah, it will even actually be simpler. There may be different words and you'd have to learn different vocabularies, but a lot of it will overlap.
Maulana,
I'm sorry, Uncle. I think I just muted Uncle by mistake. Uncle, I muted you by mistake. Can Uncle please repeat the comment or question?
yeah, what I say is what I've noticed at Quran.com. If you highlight a word, it gives you all the details of that certain word. And if it's a verb, they will give you the root also, everything. If you
Okay,
highlight
what's the website?
Quran.com.
Quran.com. Okay.
Yes,
Very
if you
good.
highlight
Good
that certain word, it will tell you it's the first, second, third word of that certain ayah, and it will then break it up for you.
Okay. Good resource, inshallah. Okay, can we go to Surah Al-Qadr now? If anybody has any more questions, you can message me or Sister Nasreen, and we can see what we can do to better and the course, and to also help going forward bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Like now, for example, we're going to have holidays, right? Holidays can be very destructive if we don't actually do some kind of revision. I mean, obviously, like I said earlier, go on holiday, enjoy yourself, or whatever, but don't abandon the work completely. Let there still be a time, okay? Even if it be just when you're making your sunnah salah, for example, that you're trying to understand what you're saying in the Fatiha. I'm not going to recommend that you now think about nahu and sarf, going to grammar lessons in your head while you're making salah. No, no, no. But just understand what you're saying, and then maybe afterwards just go, okay, what's the grammar of one word, two words? Quiz yourself, and that will help, inshallah. That will help. Right, so back to Al Quran. We were busy with Surah Al Qadr, and we said that Surah Al Qadr. Okay, let's just start properly. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Surah Al Qadr. I'm going to read the surah and then we'll take it from there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says بعد أن أقول أعوذ